Welcome back to another trade recap. Today is February the 20th. Very eventful day in the markets with a bunch of news that we had that came out. I personally ended up taking two losses, really bad two losses in my opinion. I've been very patient all week waiting for my setups, but today got a little too trigger happy, jumped in to a few setups that were not the greatest. And then, of course, there's a couple mean reversions. The timing was off. The location was decent, but just was not able to get any continuation, of course, with the news that we ended up having today, of course. And now, as you can see, let's go on to my trade calendar for the month so far. Very tough 2 weeks. The past 2 weeks have been very difficult. I ended up losing $9,000 today on two setups, and I was sized down, I'd say, compared to my normal size. And I still end up losing a lot more just because it's a Friday and the markets are a little bit more volatile today. So I lost 9,000, putting me up 12,000 for the week, around 12,000 last week actually as well. And then of course, week number one was fantastic, putting me up about $80,000 for the month so far. Still no complaints. Absolutely fantastic month, but the last 2 weeks, as I mentioned, have been a little bit more difficult, just because a lot more mean reversions, a lot more rejections at key levels. So the setups that I have been taking, if they haven't been working right away, we've had some really big rejections at key spots. Plus, of course, if you're trading 0 day contracts, those contracts can move quite a bit in a very short period of time. But let's go on to exactly the trades I end up taking today. Before we do that, let's go on to my game plan. So the game plan coming to market open was looking for that previous day low retest right off the bat. Within the first 5 minutes, that thesis was already invalidated. So I wasn't looking for shorts. And then we're looking for actually long positions on a couple names, but we weren't able to get a couple solid entries. But I mentioned I like shorts today underneath previous day lows on major indices. Q601 Spice, 682 is for my main watches. Keep an eye out on AMD higher time frame, Nvidia underneath key levels. So basically coming to market open, I was just looking for your previous day low retest. As you can see, currently the market's actually moving super solid since we had really bullish reaction within the first 5 minutes. But basically the key level here was your previous day lows. If we reject, we can see continuation lower. If we can flip back above, we can see this previous day close. And within the first 5 minutes of market open, we were leaning a little bit more towards the upside here on the major indices. So you can see within the first 5 minutes, right, pretty solid bullish candle. So the shorts were not in the picture, and then we're actually more neutral, leaning a little bit more towards the upside after we end up having a pretty solid push right off the bat, as you can see within the first 15 minutes. Right here, as you can see, within the first 15 minutes, you just went from your previous day low back up and towards your previous day highs. And my issue was here. Number one, the first trade that I ended up taking was on MU. I actually ended up having a solid entry on this one. I was up about 30%, but then instantly I was down another 30%. So I went from up 30% to down over 30%. I ended up losing on this trade. But for MU, what I was waiting for was the break above we had two entries, break above your previous day highs, which would have been the best entry. Another one was going to be the break above this 428. And I knew this was a very aggressive entry, but I just wanted to see a quick flip. And I personally wasn't able to scale off just because the spreads were a little bit wider. And I was trying to use some limit orders. Well, what I was looking for here on MU was the break above our 427 for continuation, just because this had a lot of relative strength. We had your 5 minute range retest, which could have been an entry, but I was going to wait for a little bit more confirmation. So I wanted to wait for the Wednesday's highs. I got in on a limit order, super solid entry, as I mentioned, up 30%, and then went from up 30% to ultimately down 30%. And I ended up cutting my position a little bit later, actually, down in towards this 950 candle. So that was the first loss that I ended up taking at this exact moment in time. The Qs was actually rejecting off your previous day highs. So things were moving fairly quickly here. So especially with 0 days, things were moving very quickly. It wasn't getting in the right spots, right? It doesn't make too much sense to long as Qs is rejecting right off your previous day high. So that was my first mistake. And then I end up taking another trade on AMD. And this is the trade, looking back on it, I just, there was no reason to take either of these setups. I would have to look back on the live session to see my exact thought process in real time, but AMD still kind of like this like downtrend, this bear flag forming here. Another one where I was up a decent amount, but I just didn't end up scaling whatsoever, just because I wanted to see your previous day lows. But I was looking for AMD short, previous day low. We ended up getting a nice rejection. Uh, Ultimately, a little bit of continuation. I was up about 30% as well on this one, but didn't take any scales because I wanted to see previous day lows. And as you can see, at the exact same time, Qs was consolidating. And plus, we had some news at 10 a.m. So there's a lot of news. We had news at 8:30. We had news at 9:45. We also had news at 10 a.m. as well. And of course, with the court hearing, we end up having a really big pop on the QQQ. And then for AMD, I personally end up stopping out. As soon as it broke back above with strong price action, I ended up stopping out. So both these ones, as I mentioned, were in profit, 30%, but I was looking for more because I was looking for continuation. Didn't take any off. And then I ended up taking both around 30% losers on these ones. So I ended up taking 2 losses for today. Overall markets are moving nicely here now, but just wanted to come on here. Yesterday, didn't take any trades. Today, took 2 losses. And yeah, this is very tough past 2 weeks. But I just wanted to come on here, show you guys the trades that I took, of course, right? Any trade that I take, win or lose, will be posted. So yeah, nothing really too much else to say. Hopefully we'll get some nice continuation next week. NVIDIA earnings next week. So excited for that. Besides that, I'm going to call it a day here. Going to call it a weekend, and I'll see you guys all next week. All right, take care, everyone. Peace.